Hello and welcome to another video podcast focusing on people working within the entertainment industry. My name is James and I'm a headshot photographer and videographer from Greater Manchester here in the UK. My guests today are Steve Bradshaw and Mark Mottashed from TV Cops. TV Cops are a group of ex-police officers offering police advice to the film and TV industry. Their skill set includes firearm instructors, commanders, counter-terrorism negotiators, Tier 5 suspect and witness interviewers, CID senior officers, public order and public safety commanders, dog handlers, National Crime Agency investigators, air support officers, and drone pilots. This comprehensive skill set allows them to offer authentic advice in any area of policing to writers, producers, directors, and of course actors. Steve Bradshaw started his career with the Lancashire Constabulary as a special constable in 1995 before joining the police full-time in 1997. He joined the Armed Response Unit in 2000 and spent the next 22 years in the firearms world, rising to the rank of Acting Chief Inspector in 2021 as a tactical firearms commander. Steve has always had an interest in acting, which led him to audition for a role in Henry V at a small theatre in London. From there, he worked in student productions and other small walk-on parts before joining Spotlight in 2019. Following his retirement from the police, Steve saw the opportunity for a police training and advice service for the entertainment industry, sparking the idea for TV Cops. Mark started his career as a member of the Royal Military Police at the age of 18, where he served for 4 years, including a tour in Iraq. He transferred to the Lancashire Police and spent the next 15 years working in several roles, including the Armed Response Unit and as a firearms commander, working alongside Steve. After completing a recent Masters in Senior Leadership at Lancashire University, Mark spent 12 months with the NHS as an engagement lead. He has recently joined a technology company, working with police forces across the UK, assisting their efforts to meet current and future demands through technology. Mark again works alongside Steve as a firearms instructor at TV Cops. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more entertainment videos. So let's jump straight into the podcast. Hello Mark and Steve. Thank you for coming down to this podcast. That was a great introduction we had on before, but my first question is going to be, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, Steve?
Okay. When I left school, I had an electronics apprenticeship. I studied for a degree part-time in electronics. I joined the police in 1995 as a special constable and joining the regulars in 1997. Not really knowing what I wanted to do in the police, it was just take it as it comes and see what develops. I had a bit of an interest in road policing, the traffic people. But very, very quickly, I got an interest in the Armed Response Unit. And that was because on parade, when all the police officers join together and they start their shift, it was always the group of people who seemed to be at the cutting edge of uniform policing. They always seemed to have the right kit, the right attitude and the right kind of thief catcher kind of mentality. They knew the people on the patch and that's what they wanted to do. So I applied and was successful. I did my initial firearms course in 2000 and through one guise or another I stayed in the armed policing world until I retired in March 2022, working through the ranks and the different roles, becoming an operational firearms commander. I became the inspector of the department. I became a national firearms instructor. I was a tactical advisor, and then I moved into the command world and became an initial tactical firearms commander, and then more recently a tactical firearms commander at chief inspector level for a short term. And then, but during that time, it was about 2015, 2016, I rekindled an interest in acting or theatre mainly. And I thought to myself, I wanted to do something regarding this bug, this itch about acting. So I applied for a few roles, and my favourite play is Shakespeare's Henry V, and there's a character on it, Montjoy, who is the messenger between the French and the English, and it's a very minor role. And there was a small production being run in London, and I applied for that Montjoy role because I kind of liked it. It's a long story, but big do's and little do's, I ended up getting the role of Henry V. Not the role I applied for, but there's a lot of conversations between Henry V and Montjoy, and I was able to know both sides of the play and act in for people who wanted the Montjoy role, the other side of it. So, and from there it kind of took off. I did some amateur dramatics in a small theatre over at East Lancashire, the Rosendale Players. We did Lady in the Van, we did Death Trap, and more recently Journey's End, which about the struggles of World War One, and that just kind of kicked me on, and I wanted to see where this would go. So I joined an agency in Manchester called Mink Casting. They predominantly do a lot of sporting artist work, and it was, right, what do I need to do to get on this greasy pole called acting, but also complement the fact that I was still a serving police officer. And it was basically finding out what I actually needed to do to progress. So, and in the acting world, there's like a ladder, if you will, to kind of get you to the next stage, because I wasn't going to get any good cast roles without being on Spotlight, and I wasn't going to get on Spotlight without getting some TV credits, and I wasn't going to get any TV credits unless I had a good showreel to put before casting directors. So, right, how do I get a showreel? So did some student work, and there's some student work which is still on my YouTube channel, which I'm really, really proud of. And that gets you the scenes, gets you a showreel, gets you up those ladders, the points, and gets you onto Spotlight. And that got me a couple of cast roles more recently, one on Wolf and a small cast role on The Bay, playing a police officer, which was quite amusing. And I retired in March 2022 and started up TV Cops, which, trying to marry in the two worlds together, very, very early on I realised that there's a bit of a gap in the service of being able to give good, authentic police advice. Now, I've always said that you need to find the sweet spot between authenticity and making a drama that someone will actually watch, because you could sit a police officer in front of a computer screen and show them typing up a statement for half an hour, and no one's going to watch it. Mm-hmm. So you need to find that sweet spot, and that's what TV Cops is all about, trying to find that good, authentic spot that producers, writers, directors want from any kind of police scene.
Well, I'll stop you there because we'll go more into TV Cops in a bit. Okay. I'm just going to ask Mark to leave because we've not got any time for him now, because we can concentrate on this.
Sorry.
I'm used to it.
Right, hello Mark. Could you tell us a little bit more about you?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, James. Thanks for having us on board with this. Mark, it's important to state early doors, I'm brand new to the acting world. I haven't done any previous acting prior. My only touch point with it really has been with TV Cops. So my background is similar to Steve's. I started off in the military police for 4 years at the tender age of 18. Then I moved into Lancashire Police, direct transfer into there. Spent 15 years, and that career was essentially frontline policing, as every cop does. Moved into neighbourhood policing, so a lot of partnership working and problem solving. Started promotion fairly early doors, so something called super subbing, where you become a sergeant, you pass your exams, and you jump between sergeant and PC as and when is needed. Did that for quite a while. Then I jumped into the armed response world. Did that for 5 years as a PC, 5 to 7 years on and off. That was different because I joined the civilian police thinking, I've done the firearms thing, I've done that, I don't need to do it. But actually jumped into it, loved it. Similar reasons as to why Steve joined, but essentially what I really enjoyed as a cop was when the wheel falls off. ARV are generally armed response vehicle, armed response unit are generally the people who come in and put the wheel back on. There's obviously lots of departments that do that, but when it's like a really dicey situation, that really appealed to me, and that's when ARB tended to come in. So I did that, and then progressed into more corporate roles, so organisational development, corporate development, and just focused on, while studying for a master's as well in senior leadership, so I really focused on change management, theory, etc. And then I decided to become I applied to become a force incident manager. So I become a firearms commander, so the same as what Steve was. My trainer, to be honest, had his issues, but he didn't do too bad, Steve, to be honest.
I think I passed.
So Steve trained me up, did that for the last 12 months of my career with 15 years in Lancashire Police, and it was just time for me to move on. It was a long-term plan for me, 3 years, hedging my bets. I was doing the Masters, but also wanted to progress my police career with a view to leave the police and just develop elsewhere. So I left the police just over 12 months ago, went straight into the NHS in organisational development role as an engagement lead. And then recently I've moved into the tech industry, where I'm working for a tech company who provide advice, consultancy, software, hardware, all manner of IT needs to lots of accounts, and I hold a load of police accounts. So I'm actually at the forefront of providing the IT needs, etc., to police forces as and when they need it. And then I've been brought on to TV Cops, so that's probably a good place to stop.
Excellent. So, do you think you'll get into the acting?
You know what, Steve? He turned around and said to me, "Okay, just come for one acting session," and I did. That was down in Manchester, and actually I really enjoyed it. But I probably don't have the confidence to go into acting full mainstream. But I'm still enamoured by, and that's what's been great about the courses, to be honest, was to see what the actors are like and their skill sets, etc. And I'm like, right, okay, that's quite impressive. But no, I think I'll perhaps not do so.
But he has starred in a short welfare video for Oscar Kilo, which is the police welfare initiative. What was your title, Mark? Was it Man in Toilets?
Man in Toilet Opens Door.
Man in Toilets Open Doors and Gives Critical Look.
I'm still waiting for the Oscar, to be honest.
Because we could be Northern Mitchell brothers.
Yeah, we could, yeah.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
All right, Brav.
Yeah, you can be Peggy.
I've only done one acting role, and that was at school, and I was William the Conqueror.
Oh,
so do I up you there on Henry V? I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think you do, yeah.
Just a quick one, Mike. Was there a culture shock from the military police to Lancashire Police?
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of things really. So one was, from a personal point of view, was your own independent thinking. So if a sergeant turned around to me and said, when I was a probationer, "Mark, run through that wall," the only question I would have asked was how many times. So it was, being surrounded by colleagues who actually turned around and questioned leadership decision making. That was a real culture shock to me. And another thing as well. So in the armed forces as the military police, you're there policing the squaddies. So if you were to say something, "I want you to do this," you were backed up by legislation and law. And generally with the army, as you would expect, people are disciplined. They would generally do what you said, and if they didn't, then that would result in further action. So the culture shock for me was going out and speaking to civilian people, or normal people, and saying, "Oh, do this," and they're saying, "No," but perhaps a bit more forward than that, and then me not haven't been able to, understanding that people had their own independence, etc. And that was a real my nickname for the first year was Judge Dredd, because I was like a robot. I literally couldn't and I really struggled to deal with it when people were quite right. I could turn around and say, "No, you can do this, do that," but obviously ruder. And it wasn't really much grounds for me to deal with them as I would do in the army.
Which Judge Dredd do you like? I prefer the modern one. Not the one with Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, you're quite right. Yeah, it was a really good film. That actually, quite dark at parts.
Who's the modern one?
It's the chap who.
Oh, it's terrible.
He was in Dracula, weren't he, as well?
Yes.
And Lord of the Rings, and I can't remember his name.
I'll put it up on screen for the viewers.
Okay.
Just before we move on to entertainment, you both recently left. Do you miss the job?
I left after you, didn't I? Yeah. No, I retired, so I did my
25 years,
time.
22 years.
Well, I did my 25 years in
24, I think it was. But
24 years, 11 months.
it's very important in the cops to get the years
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
It
So
always
You
adds
can
that
ask
extra month.
any policeman and they know exactly when they're retiring.
Yeah. So it was like 2.5 weeks shy of 25 years, but thanks, Mark. So I did my 25 years in the place, and I brought some pension in from British Nuclear Fuels because that's the way that the pension was. So I was able to top my pension up. So I retired at 49 with a full police pension at inspector rank, which is good in the great scheme of things, especially at the current climate. But do I miss it? No, and I don't mean that harsh. And I didn't fall out with the job. I loved it, and a lot of people said to me, "You'll struggle. I think you'll struggle when you leave."
You become institutionalised.
You do become institutionalised in a way, but for me, it kind of fell off my shoulders very, very quickly. I took a break. I went travelling around Europe for a month when I retired, before I started anything else, and that was good for me because I was able to spend a lot of time on myself, walking and just generally getting your head straight. And so no, I don't miss the job because there was a lot of responsibility. So I kind of got to my finishing line and went, yeah, okay. I look back and say I'm happy with my lot. The people, yes, because
The camaraderie.
yeah, and you can't, you just can't put into words the people who you work with. And now in the firearms command world, we worked in the communications room environment as well as the firearms world. And the communications room staff, who are police staff members, not police officers, they're the ones who are just as daft and just as crazy as cops.
So, Mark, do you?
Yeah, very similar to Steve. So yeah, it was a bit of a different leaving. So 15 years in. So I was surrounded by colleagues who were and still am, who are still in the job. But yeah, it's in summary, definitely missed the camaraderie. Certainly missed the importance of the role as a force incident manager. What I loved about that role was commanding and making sure we were looking after the troops and making sure they were looking after the public as well. And just going from that into what was essentially working from home office job 9 to 5. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I really did notice that difference, and just handing your warrant card gingerly across on your last day thinking, is this the right thing to do? But certainly don't miss the pressures of the role. You don't realise, everyone's in a game and you don't realise what game you're in until you step out. And I just realised that the commitment that's needed for the job, so the shifts, the 12-hour shifts, the stress of it all, the cancel the rest days, the scrappiness to try and get annual leave, saying no to all social events, I certainly don't miss that.
The role that we did, there just wasn't, like a lot of roles in police, and detectives will shout at the podcast when they hear this, but a lot of roles in policing were just massively understaffed, and our role was no different. And there always had to be, without fail, the bum on the seat in the command centre, and you had to do what you had to do to fill that spot. And you were working 12-hour shifts, quick changeovers and stuff, and working some long hours in what is a mentally taxing role.
Okay, then. So that's great. So we now know a little bit more about you. Can we move on to find out more about TV Cops? Could you tell us where did it come from?
I've been on set a few times as an actor, and I would never advertise that I was a cop because I never wanted to blur those lines on set and stuff. And I remember the first time I had a walk-on role on Hollyoaks, and it was going in and arresting one of the characters and the script said embezzlement. So I'm thinking, this is wrong. Embezzlement, where's this taking place? Like New York. So I had a word with the second director, second AD, and I said, are we sure about it? Yeah, it's been through legal. I was like, it's not right, type of thing. So I had to kind of come out in a way and say, it's not right because I'm saying the line. I'm sure you want it to be right. We can make a change and can we just lock him up for fraud? Oh, we'll do an option on it, which means that say the embezzlement and then we'll do it all again and say fraud. So I was like, fine. no problem whatsoever. And it's from there, really. That's the first one where I thought, there's a niche here. There needs to be somebody, because my partner is a medical advisor to TV and film. And she has been working with the soaps and stuff for years through a company called Medical Hire. So it seems to be jacked up for the medical side of it, but there just wasn't anything policing-wise. And I think that they were going to people and asking certain people who just happened to be an ex-cop, and there was nothing formalised. So that got the juices flowing, and again, being on set a few times. One was, I played a cop on Stay Close more recently, a couple of years ago, and again, they were asking me some questions about when they found out I was a cop, about, we've just done this arm scene, and we were like scratching our heads and wondering what we were to do with it, and this guy was running away, and we thought, we'll just fire some shots at him. And I was like, which is, and that is in Stay Close. And I've had so many people contact me and go, what's all this about firearms officers just firing shots at someone because they're running away? But it's little things like that.
So you get lots of grief from your old colleagues?
No, they're very supportive. They've been totally supportive. And whenever I've appeared on TV, there's been nothing but love and encouragement that I've received by text.
I'm not sure how to take that.
Yeah. Just take the inverse of everything I've just told you.
Sarcasm.
But so, yeah, it came from there, really. But because it was so closely related to the role of a police officer, I couldn't do anything with it until I retired. So I retired on March the 8th, 2022. I went for I went for a trip around Europe, but everything was ready to press the button on, really, and just get it off the ground and try and start some networking and try and get into different agencies and just try and get the message out that there is a group of people who can give you that advice, who are experienced on being on set as well. Because I think the nervousness is that you can get a cop who knows what they're doing, but do they know how a TV set works, especially something like a soap, which moves on at a fair rate of knots. Right. And it's like, right, you get one chance at it, maybe two chances at it for a reverse shot, and that's it, away we go. So that's where
the idea came from. Does it also mean you get two wage packets there, one as an actor and one as an advisor?
It does, but if I'm in a show, and I've been in the show, I've done some court scenes for Emmerdale and Coronation Street, and advice comes up, I don't start saying, oh, right, I need to bill you separately. If I'm on set to do the acting, I'm on set. So the acting side of it is the thing that I get paid for. And I'm there to give whatever advice. Because some of the times, especially when I'm playing a cop, it will be to give myself the advice, so I don't muddy the waters. Plus, hopefully, makes you a better prospect as an actor. If they can just, instead of paying for me to go on set and advise another actor they've paid to go on set, why don't they just get me? Is my argument.
Let's hope the producers appreciate that. They're getting two for the...
Yeah, the downside of that is that the other actor's probably a lot better.
So who are your colleagues? Who do you work with at TV Cops?
Well, the thing is with TV Cops is it's not just me and it's not just Mark. There is a group of us who will come in as and when they're needed. Now, we offer the advice to writers, to producers, directors at all stages. So when the writer's putting the pen on the paper and going, how are we going to make this work? I get the contact then, all the way through to actually doing the scene and being on set and advising the actor and advising the director. So, sorry, what was the question?
It was who do you work with?
All right, okay. So
how many people are in TV Cops?
So we have a group of people. TV Cops is a group of people under the umbrella. And we have firearms experts, which is me and Mark. We have, because me and Mark were firearms, so the fact that we had never interviewed anyone in our firearms career, perhaps once or twice, maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
You wouldn't go to a firearms officer to go and interview somebody. So we can't really advise on interview techniques, but we have what's called a level 5 PIP interviewer, and they're the people who train the people who interview murderers and rapists. Got them on the team. I've got public order specialists, you know, the people with the helmets and the shields jump out of a big van. Those people. We've got counter-terrorism negotiator, hostage negotiator, who can advise as well, because...
So any production, they can come to you and you would be able to offer them everything?
Yeah. And I will never say to a production, I can give you that advice and try and wing it, because I think you've got one chance of getting that authentic message across. And if something airs, cops especially love to tweet in and go, that's wrong. Who gave that advice? Just like I can't watch a TV programme on TV about cops. I just can't do it. Just like my other half can't watch Casualty or Holby. It's just something I just can't do. So
I've got to ask you that later. What's your favourite one? But
yeah, we supply the right person for that part of the script. So the case in point to that is, and it's on the front page of my website, is the firearms scenes on Wedding Season, which is a Disney Plus production. We were involved from the script side of that all the way through to giving the advice on set. And it was the advice from the firearms side. We got things added because it was only by me saying that the ARVs carry smoke devices. They were like, "Oh, great, we'll write that in." And you see on the screen that a smoke canister comes in. But there's also interview scenes on Wedding Season, and we got our PIP 5 person to advise on the interview.
Just like that, what, PIP?
PIP. It's basically, I don't know what PIP stands for. It's basically...
I'm thinking Persons to Procedures, but it's not that.
No.
It's in practice, professional...
Police interview.
Can we edit this out?
They're going to be tweeting now, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's a nationally recognised accreditation.
Okay.
It's basically, when you join the police and you're interviewing shoplifters and things like that, you get a very, very basic PIP accreditation. And it goes up in scales. So if you're PIP level 1, you can interview a shoplifter. If you're PIP level 2, you can start interviewing people for fraud or something like that. PIP level 3, you're talking about your rapists, murderers, and all the rest of it, detectives, people. And PIP level 5 are the people who train PIP level 3. So I have 2 PIP level 5 and a PIP level 3 trained person who always gives the advice on the interview scenes. I don't give advice on interview scenes if I can help it. Some of the basic stuff about which button to press on the machine and who needs to be in the room and why is there always a uniform cop in the corner of an interview room whenever detectives are interviewing. That type of thing I can give advice on when I give the first pass of the script.
How's my interview technique? Would I pass?
Well, depends what you're trying to get out of me. Depends on what you're trying to get me to confess to, really. Or it's not about, I'm not an interviewer. It's not about getting a confession, is it? It's about getting the truth. That's what it's about.
I think the American ones have got to be worse than the Brits, haven't they?
Yeah, that's just pointing a finger at somebody, isn't it? And slamming your fist on the table.
Yeah, and being glamorous. And then they confess. Just open up.
Well, none of it's
no
recorded.
Evidence.
None of it's recorded, is it, in America? But
so what's your role, Mark, in TV Cops?
All right, yeah, so when Steve presented the idea, obviously with my firearms experience, but also in the change management side and organisational development, I was like, yeah, really keen to help him every step of the way. I said, if you need, from a critical eye as well, critical perspective, happy to step in and have a look at it and just pass my thoughts. So Steve's very open, as he's already mentioned, to not making sure that it's all him, he runs with it. Even the firearm stuff, he's very experienced. He would always bring me on it and say, okay, what's your take on it? And I think from not coming from the acting world as well, I think it's nice to actually have that different perspective. Yes, it's absolutely important and it's a lot of learning for me, but it's good to step in and go and still have that. That really wouldn't happen in the real world. But then that's when Steve and that's where it merges quite well, because Steve will go, yeah, but it isn't the real world, Mark. This is TV and film. So this is, there has to be a balance, as he's mentioned already. So yeah, come in and do that. And I also teach on or instruct on the firearms courses as well that we do, which is great. Which is, if you asked me 18 months ago, would I see myself doing that at the weekend and teaching actors how to safely handle weapons and be confident in doing so? It wasn't really my bag at all, but now I, to be honest, get as much enjoyment as the students do as well out of it.
Because you mentioned before about one of the things you don't miss from your previous job, long hours on sets, standing around. Does that not annoy you?
No, because that's where you want to be. And when I first joined Army Response and when I first became a firearms commander, it was like, right, give me it all. Test me, give me that scenario, give me that scenario. I was always like scenario testing myself on. But once you've done it for 10 years, you've kind of done it. And this was a new world, but it's something fresh like a set. And you'd be sat on, especially when I first started and I was doing a lot of sporting artist work, you would be hanging around a lot. But it's a matter of, right, okay, what does that do over there? It's like the cop mind in many ways, and go, right, who's that person? Why are they in front of that TV screen there? And why are they doing that? And what does checks mean? What does that mean? Why is they rushing in? And that person who's telling that person what to do, they're not the director. They do. So it's a matter of, right, I want to know it all. Give me all this information. Tell me all about it. So that kept it fresh. That kept it interesting because.
So how many times do you, not exactly back down, but say, you're saying, well, this is how it should be done. But then the producers, writers say, but we're doing an entertainment show here.
Yeah, it's not a documentary. Yeah. And I always treat myself as being like a tactical advisor to a commander who has to make a decision, right? Whether that be a writer, producer, director, or whatever, there's somebody who has to make a decision. And I respect that because it's like a rank structure, and I'm used to that.
You offer the best advice.
Yeah, so I'll say, right, because there's a firearms scene. It's a dynamic entry right at the beginning of wedding seasons where they basically bosh the door in and they go charging in with guns and someone gets arrested. So when we were like blocking that out, I said to the director, this is how it would look. And he was like, right, okay, well, I need that person to move because there's a camera going at the bottom of the stairs and I need it to be 3 seconds quicker. I need this to happen. And go, right, okay, that's how it works in real life. Right, let's now start merging it with what you want. Rather than going from the other way of saying, right, we'll just all rush in, right, what do you want it to do? It's a little bit haphazard. I will say, right, this is how it works. This is how it would be in real life. Right, what do you need? And it's that working together, but keeping the authenticity. And a lot of the times, it's the simple changes. It's like having the interviewer say just something slightly different, or having the people stacked up on that front door to bosh the door in, have them in a different order because that person with that rank won't be sat there, won't be stood there, they'd be somewhere else. And it's just having the simplest of tweaks sometimes.
I imagine it mainly falls across when there's an action scene, when they want someone to be almost like a gunslinger, and you'd say, no, they wouldn't be like that.
Ultimately, it's the productions. It's production's call, and I'm never going to say, oh, that's completely wrong and throw my pad on the floor and storm out. It's, right, what do you want to happen here? This is what it would look like. Now, there's always the thing in, and any armed officer will tell you, whenever you see an armed entry of a building on TV, you normally get 2 or 3 firearms officers in some kind of entry, and then you get a detective walking in, or come sauntering in, and go, right, Billy, you're locked up, mate, all that kind of stuff. And it's, well, that wouldn't happen. And we had that in wedding season, where the emergency entry they do near the end, when there's someone tied to a chair, the emergency entry is absolutely bob on. And I got free rein with that with the director, because the script just said, firearms officers rush in, and the chap turns around, he starts firing at the police, and then, he gets hit and all the rest of it. So we were able to do it perfectly right. But part of the script said the detective comes in at the back and hits one of the bad guys with a chair to subdue him. So that had to stay in. But everything around it that we had a bit of play with, we did. And the production staff were first class in just saying, over to you, Steve. And I had 4, 5 sporting artists who weren't tactically trained. I had about an hour with them to teach them a tactic which would normally take an experienced firearms officer 4 days to pick up. So you make the best as you can, but you're able to say, right, and block it out a lot better. But yeah, it's like I say, it's finding that sweet spot between what they want and what you want.
It links quite nicely to your strapline, doesn't it?
Yeah, because that was really, really important. And it's the message that I wanted to get out after the name. TV Cops, authenticity, together. So we'll do it together because you've got a script to follow, you've got a production, you've got to make a drama that people are going to watch. Right, what do you want to happen? Because what you'll find, especially in firearm scenes, is the script will be like 3 lines. Firearms officers enter, shout, armed police, 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 and somebody gets arrested. And I'll use the wedding season story again, but when we did the dynamic entry, the script said armed police, and we changed it to contact, armed police, show me your hands, which it didn't change the scene other than just make it more authentic.
Because that's where it comes into about entertaining. Isn't it? People expect, because they watch American ones, they expect the armed police, the SWAT team to come rushing in.
Yeah, well, it's also finding a way for that point of that point of the script to make sense. So if officers are going to do an armed entry into a house, and anyone looking at it might think, they won't do that at that point. If you can add 3 words into the script 5 scenes before that make it possible, no problem at all. It's about the whole script, and that's why I really do enjoy getting involved at the script level. And I will throw 100 things at a writer, and if one thing sticks, happy days. If nothing sticks, no problem whatsoever. I never get protective or defensive about the advice. It's a matter of, I'm the advisor, I'm the tactical advisor, you're the commander, you're dealing with it. Here's everything that I have. If there was an option I didn't give them, which they would have used, that's my fault. That's the way I see it.
Well, that's great. That could you tell us who the clients are? Who would employ TV Cops, be it as an advisory service?
So for the police advice to TV and film, as a separate arm to the courses that we provide, it's everybody involved in that, in the whole making of a TV or a film. It's been writers for me. Like I said, I really do prefer to get right in at the early stages with writers, and writers have been very, very, because you would think a writer would be very protective about their show and their idea, because it's not something they've come up with overnight. This is something which has been developing for a while, especially around how long it takes an idea to actually get onto the screen. But more so, if it's for example a production that's been around for a couple of seasons, even more protective. And I found writers are really open, really, really engaging, really accepting of the advice that you give, because they might have an idea and go, oh, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. Can we try that? Or would you mind trying that? Or there's an idea for you. And they pick up on some of it. They don't pick up on other things. Like I've said to writers, I've given antidotes. I've given stories about, oh, this reminds me of a story about something that happened in the police. And they've used the story that was in the police that I've given them, because they just want the information that I get from writers. They just want the information. And when a script gets locked down, the ability to change, especially to change the dynamic of a scene, is quite hard. You can change the odd word, like I said before, about, changing armed police to something actually an armed officer would say. Small changes, but the flow of the narrative, or the issues that come up, is much harder, nearly impossible to do later on. So writers, producers have had me on board and said, right, I want you on set, and you're going to be working with this director. I've had directors contact me. I've also had actors themselves contact me and just ask a question that's been on the script, saying, "Oh, how would I say that? How would I do that?" Because there's a lot of initialisms and acronyms in the place, and it's like, well, how would you say this phrase in a cop kind of way? And those are the very easy changes that you can make, and probably the issues that jump out at cops when they watch something on TV.
All productions that are team effort, aren't they? Collaborative. Which do you prefer, the smaller productions or the larger, bigger ones?
I love the passion and the dedication and the commitment you get from a small budget production where the writer's also the second AD and also the caterer and also the driving the minibus and stuff like that. And someone's got 15 grand budget on a production and they still want a police advisor. I find that someone's passion to get things right is really, really good to see, and you'll go to the end of the earth for these people. But a soap, love working on soaps because it is fast paced and it's right. Okay, what would happen here? How would we do this? What would go on here? I love to break into the soaps more than I currently am because we've got quite a few in the Northwest, and but long-standing productions or films, again, they're just a different world, absolutely different world, and it's good for just getting to know people and connections and just speaking to the crew. And you're right, I have never been on a set where the crew aren't as one, because everybody from the props people to the set designers and the lighting people, I am in awe with some of the stuff that they do. I recently played a hitman on Cobra, which is coming out this autumn, and it was just a scene around a bandstand, one of the parks in Liverpool, and the work that went in to make that shot what it was eye-opening. And you'd think that it was cold, it was damp, and you think people would be like, let's just do it, let's get it done, you know what I mean? And the attention to detail the whole crew have is awe-inspiring. And it goes back to what I said about in the police. You look at people sometimes and go, yeah, they're the people you want to be kind of part of. To be part of that crew would be something special.
So going back to that bandstand, did you feel pressure then? I mean, did you have long lines?
I had lines and I had to run.
Oh gosh, really?
Yeah, I had to run, I had to point a gun and walk up the steps of a bandstand.
I remember you telling me about that. Yeah, there were some intricacies there, weren't there? Yeah, with the steps.
Hooky steps, yeah. Walking up while still being in the aim.
So puffing, panting, running up steps.
So I'm thinking I cannot show me on film when this comes out looking down where my feet are whilst I'm trying to aim a weapon. I said that I'd never live that down. Imagine the rinsing I would get from that. I'm still looking out for it. Imagine the rinsing I would get from that. But again, and I think to myself, although it was never said, I think to myself that the acting complements TV cops and the TV cops complements the acting, because my agent knows what I do, but isn't my agent for TV cops. But will say, you want a hitman? Right, let me tell you about the person we've got on our books. And I did a self-tape and got the job. So I like to think that, of course, it was my acting skills that got me that job, but the TV cops and the firearms handling skills are there with it.
Well, I want to dive deeper into you as an actor in a bit, but can we go on to, so let's just now say an actor's come to you, or an actor's been assigned to you to be taught how to handle something. Is it a physically demanding course?
I would say it's definitely mentally demanding. Absolutely, we ask a lot of them, but it's for their good
That's annoying because you've answered my next question. But there you go.
As a recap, yeah. So physically, it's not too strenuous, but it is a day of you are moving. You are expected to be standing on the point, and you're firing weapons. So yeah, it is physically demanding, but not too much, I would say.
No,
It's a very
and
general
people
answer.
come with some concerns about that.
Well, when it comes to range safety, because we do it on an official firing range at Wheaton Barracks.
Is it real firearms?
It's blank firers, but yeah. So getting back to the range etiquette is you must not rush people. So, and it's all about safety. So we are not asking people to rush. We're not getting them running, which used to happen in the army on the range. That's where mistakes were made. But no, it's all about making sure it's calm paced and it's safe. That is the overall thing. But yeah, so back to the firearms question. Yeah, over to yourself really, because it was yourself who kind of procured them.
It's an actor's course for weapons safety and handling. We all know what happened with Alec Baldwin at the set of Rust in America a couple of years ago now, isn't it? That it seemed daft that we had all these experts handling this firearm up to the person who was pulling the trigger, who then pulled the trigger and killed the DOP, and then subsequently has been charged with a manslaughter because they're the ones who pulled the trigger, and you've got some responsibility around it. So it's an actor's course, and we wanted to replicate it. On set, you're not going to fire a real live round, full stop. Well, you shouldn't be anyway. You're going to be firing blanks because we want the bang, you want the flash, you want the top slide of the weapon to go backwards, and you want a round to come ejecting out. That's what you want. That's the money shot from a DOP point of view for a self-loading pistol. So to get that, we use blanks.
Are we delving into the role of an armourer here?
No. We're not armourers, because an armourer, if I was an armourer and Mark was the actor, an armourer would come to the actor and say, I have your weapon here. This weapon is safe, and I put it in his holster, or something like that. Now, if it's loaded with blanks, because the scene wants blanks, or the scene wants a dummy round in, which is just, you put a round in which looks like a real bullet, but doesn't have the gunpowder, doesn't have the charge, and doesn't have the means for it to...
A projectile.
Project the bullet head. But an armourer would be the person who gave Alec Baldwin the gun. What we teach is for the actor to say, OK, thank you, armourer. Prove that weapon clear to me, please. And they will drop a magazine, back the top slide, prove it clear, and then we teach the actor to look and to prove it clear themselves. Take receipt of the weapon, put the weapon into a ready state, and they put it into their holster. Now, if it's a scene that requires blanks or dummy rounds, they know what they're looking for. So if they said, "Okay, can you show me the weapon?" and they took the magazine out and they went, "They're not blank rounds." They will be able to know the difference between dummy rounds, real rounds, or blank rounds. So that's what we teach them. So they should be able to prove that weapon, it's in its correct state themselves. There are a lot of really good armourers out there, and I'm not discrediting any armourer out there. All the armourers I've ever worked with on set have been on point. But all it takes is one mistake. And for me, if I'm pointing a gun at an actor on a set, I don't want to know what state that weapon was in.
You're adding an extra layer of safety.
Exactly. Don't get me wrong, the amount of firearms that are about in the UK is nowhere near the amount of firearms that are around in the US. But some of the larger weapons, we could be talking about shotguns, we could be talking about bolt guns, we could be talking about a production which is more and more being based in Europe. There's a lot of productions in Prague at the moment, and what used to be the old Eastern Bloc. And you get handed a weapon, our actors are taught to clear those weapons, and that's our bronze course.
I think it's worth mentioning the risk of blank rounds as well. So essentially a blank round. So you have a normal round which has the charge and it has a projectile, what's called the bullet, so a bit of brass that fires off. A blank round is exactly the same, it just doesn't have the projectile, so it doesn't fire anything. So you still get the same sound, the same kickback, and the same discharge, when you see the casing fly out. But the risk with blank rounds is you can still kill someone, and someone has died on set due to blank rounds. So if you were to fire a blank round in close proximity, due to the gases and other forces that are coming out the end of the weapon, that can kill somebody. And I can't remember the name now. I don't know if you can. Don't remember. But someone on set in America in I think the 70s did that. 80s.
Yeah,
had a blank firer, thought nothing of it, put it to his temple, pulled the trigger, fractured his skull, and unfortunately he died. So there's real
you can
risk.
imagine the gases and the acoustic waves, all sorts of
Absolutely.
things,
So there's real risk there. And for me, if an actor was to pick up and fire a blank round for the first time, like, it is a scary thing to do. And on our courses, you know, it's completely understandable, and we coach them through that, but people are shaking on point. And to ask that of them when they've never done it before on set is a real big ask.
Plus, you as a director, you don't want this to be the first time they've done it and be shaking. You want it to be the 53rd time they've done it.
You're not going to get a good performance, are you? If they're worried about the actual...
No, they don't expect, they don't know what's coming, and they don't expect it to go bang and flash. But we also teach them the 5 principles of shooting. So when they draw a weapon, or they point a weapon, or they do whatever, they've been taught how to do it. And we actually test their marksmanship using high velocity BB weapons. So we teach them how to shoot, and then we test the shot fall and the accuracy.
It's generally, I don't know if it's testament to our teaching. I'd like to think it is, but we have generally been massively impressed. There's a couple of them on the first course who were, I'm pretty sure they must have been spies or backups to the Bourne Identity, because they did not miss a shot. And I think it was testament to talking them through the principles slowly and saying it's because there's certain things you need to do, and they took it in. So they're so agile, taking in information, as what I found with acting. I may touch on that later, but yeah, they were just on point every time. And afterwards, the confidence, like you see the confidence go up at the start of the day and then throughout the day, and by the end of the weekend, the things that they're doing and the confidence that they have, safe confidence and competence is it's really nice to behold, isn't it?
Yeah, we've gone and marked targets. You know, we go and see where the shot fall is on the target, and we've said to people, going, these are passing ARV qualification shoot.
Yep.
I know he's spoken about it himself on a different podcast, but Andrew Dalbiggin, who plays Clarkey on The Bay, I think he'd pass an ARV qualification shoot.
And
so Chris Lee.
Chris Lee.
The actor, who's on this current series of The Bay, I think he plays an FI, financial investigator or something, on the current series of The Bay.
He didn't miss one shot, and he was a chap I was thinking, there's something not right here. This guy's an international spy. What's going on?
He was in the Olympics or something like that, shooting.
Well, he was, him, like you said, him and Andy.
But we reviewed it afterwards, because we review all our courses afterwards, and we said to ourselves, is it because we are not actually firing anything until late on day one? Because we're teaching them how to shoot and look like they're shooting properly. Because if we can teach you to shoot, you'll look like you're shooting on screen properly, and you'll hold the weapon. You won't get frightened by the bang or, some really bad grips you see on TV.
Yeah, in the army you call it gop-handed.
Now, don't get me wrong. If people are firing one-handed sideways and stuff like that, we can't teach that. But just generally drawing a weapon and putting it back and being able to aim it, we teach the basic 5 principles of shooting, and then we see where the shot fall is. And we were expecting first time. We thought, well, if they get out of 10 shots, if they get like 2 or 3 on, they'll be happy. And we saw the shots landing in the centre of the target, and we were like, okay, this is going okay.
Well, they're never going to be as good as us. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we refuse to shoot for fear of embarrassment.
Yeah, me and my wife, we've done clays, and the instructor would never shoot because he said, "I'll put you off."
Yeah. Well, it's as a firearms instructor, it was the one thing that we got taught on our firearms course is say, if you're going to demonstrate something, make sure you can do it.
Yeah.
As in the shot fall with a conventional firearm. Because if you're teaching someone how to shoot a Glock pistol, like we used, or the SIGs now that Lancs police use, they're very easy weapons to shoot if you know what you're doing. So we were very pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely.
And this goes back to the adaptability and the approach, and actors just throw themselves into stuff.
Oh yeah, the
don't
mental
they?
agility. And again, when I touched on earlier about being new to the acting world, wasn't sure what to expect, but the mental agility, like we were teaching them things. So this is how you do it properly, safely, and they were taking it on board, and that is testament again to how good they were at shooting. So that really took me by surprise. Not that I wasn't expecting anything, to be honest, but just at the end of the weekend, I ran up to you, didn't I? I said, I just cannot believe how quickly they've taken it on, and I generally would have, if they were to come to an arm response assessment day to see whether they could come onto the grueling course, most of them, if not all of them, would actually, I'd say, yeah, let's have them. I'd have them in my team.
But once you fired it once, and what we found is once they've fired a couple of rounds with a blank firer, and we do it 1-to-1. When they're first firing it, we're 1-to-1 with them. And
2-on-1 actually. Isn't
sorry,
it?
2-on-1, yeah. And all the other students watch it, and because there's a lot of vicarious learning goes on with the Rangers. And once they fire 2, they're fine. They want to fire another 50.
Yeah, but and again, I think a bit of a unique perspective to this is that when I first picked up a real firearm in the army, I was really apprehensive about firing it, and just the fear of, oh my gosh, this is something that could kill somebody, and the kit back and everything. And then did that, obviously you get used to it, and then I had a break when I wasn't a firearm, when I obviously left, and then I joined Firearms Cop. So even though I'd been there and I was experienced, I still felt that same apprehension. And this is what we relay to our students, and we say, listen, it's going to be there, and it's absolutely fine for it to be there, and we expect it to be there, but we'll coach you through it. And you watch them do the first 5 rounds, when they've all gone through it 1-to-1, and they are literally like
buzzing,
and we want to get on it again, like, yeah, let's do it. And it's really rewarding, isn't it, to see that, and just the confidence that they have. And again, firing rounds, but it's the focus of this is just safety. And when they, at the end of day 2, we're like, okay, prove your weapons clear to each other, get your weapon out safely, they're putting it in the right direction, they're clearing it, they've got all that confidence. It's really good to see. And we don't just leave it there. We send them with detailed aid memoirs because, like anything, skill fade. If you've not picked up all firearms for another 6 months, 12 months, they've got it all there to jog their memory and say, okay, so they can tip up on set and say, right, okay. And you mentioned about advice before. We also extend that to all our students. So we always say, wherever you're on set, or prior to going, or what do you call it when you go for an audition, then say, give us a call. We're there. You're part of our club, the TV Cops Club. Give us a ring, give us a video message, or whatever you want to do, and we'll talk you through it.
Which we have done a few times. Mm-hmm. Even for different roles in the police.
Yeah.
Just talking about, because one of our students gone for a couple of police roles. One was a detective, one was a call handler, an intel unit people. And a lot of initialism and acronyms went through them with her.
As long as it wasn't PIP.
There must be, you've really bigged them up here. There must be someone that couldn't hit a barn door.
No, genuinely, we've not had it. It was year 1, and we've not had that.
No, we haven't. No. Even because we ran some practice courses where we didn't really have actors on it, did we, for the first?
Well, I had my wife who went on it, who was not interested in it at all at the start, and by the end of the day, unnervingly, she was a very good shot.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that you taught your wife how to shoot. See, my partner's, as well as being a medical advisor, she's an actor as well, so she's been on the courses as well, and she brought a unique perspective to it. But no, we've not had anybody who's been really off or been really shaky with the safety or anything, because we absolutely drill it, don't we? We the first morning is all about weapon safety. I don't think we get any rounds out for the first few hours, do we?
No, and it's gradual, isn't it, how we do it? We don't just throw you on it. It's not shock and awe. It's none of this macho, we're firearms. And I know I don't look friendly, but I can assure you, to those who do want to attend, I am. But it's all it's guided, it's slow paced. Drawing back to, we don't want to rush people. We don't just want to be, oh yeah, we know about firearms, look at us. There's none of that. That's not what we're about at all. It's all about giving a service to them.
So we've established that you're not going to beast them too much.
Absolutely not.
They go away from it challenged, though. They go away from it thinking, I need to have a bit of a lie down sometimes. But, they attack it head on.
So is it more mentally taxing rather than physically?
Yeah. Because we will make reasonable adjustments for people that come on the course regarding physical stuff. We have 8mm blank firing weapons and 9mm blank firing weapons. If people are, through one male or female, struggling with the top slide, pulling it back, it takes a little bit of pressure to do it, we use the 8mm weapons.
Isn't that much of a difference between the two?
They are for the weapons that we have, because the 9mm Urquell ones are quite chunky.
Yeah, they
aren't they?
Yeah.
But they are the proper. They give you a good kick.
Very similar to real life, aren't they?
Yeah, but the 8mm ones, it's just a smaller weapon. So the weapon itself is more of a Glock replica, just a little bit smaller. So we do make those reasonable adjustments. But it still kicks back. It still takes the top slide back. Still get the ejection of it. And to be fair, if you were on screen and you were using a weapon which quite clearly is too big for you, you'd be like, well, that's not right, because that person who's playing that person with a gun, whether it be a good guy or bad guy, wouldn't have that weapon. They'd have something which would suit them a bit more.
Are we talking Colt 45s here?
Well,
Dirty Harry.
Yeah, most powerful handgun in the world, I believe.
Is it?
Can blow your head clean off.
I've only just got that.
Go ahead, punk, make my day.
Yeah, exactly.
So once an actor's been on your course, do they come away with a certificate? Is this something they can add to their CV then?
Yeah, the thing is with our course, like I said, it is actor-centric, right? And for actors, if we don't have moving images of it, it never happened. So we record the final assessments, and if the students are successful, they get the final interview. What we're introducing this year is we're taking some scenes from films and we're recreating them. So we're showing their skills against a established scene. There's an established scene of Val Kilmer in Heat, where he's using, is it an AR-15?
I thought it was an M16.
Is that not the same weapon?
Kalashnikov.
He's using an AR derivative of a weapon. Anyway, it shows him firing it in both directions. He drops to his knee, does a mag change, and comes back up and starts firing. And there's a military joke, isn't there?
Yeah,
that's like a benchmark for military people to get. If you can't change the magazine as fast as this actor, get out of my army.
And genuinely, we were shown that video in basic training. So the first 3 months where you go through how to fire a weapon, we were shown, okay, this is how you pepper pot. And they put the heat on. I was like, right, okay. And to think that we're showing the same video 20 years on.
So we use that, and we use that video and that scene to recreate it for the actors, because they can then have that footage.
For their show reel?
For whatever they want to use it, so they can upload it to their Spotlight, or they can put it on the show reel if they wish, but it's probably not something for a show reel, but you can do. But it's always good to, under the other skills part of Spotlight, is to get a video on, let people see what you can do. Because you could say you can, oh yeah, I ride a horse, me. Of course I do, like every actor does. But if there's a video of you in the derby, that proves that you can ride a horse, doesn't it?
There's a nice segue about the final assessment, isn't there? Where we're marrying both worlds of that. Okay, so essentially, so we've got the firearm safety aspect and how to fire it and how to look it, but also we incorporate the acting side of things, and this is where Steve's knowledge comes in, and where we marry quite nicely is that, okay, it's actually set up as a scene, so they've got certain marks to hit, certain actions to do, certain lines as well, so it's actually written as a scene / assessment as well to see how we safely handle it. So it's a case of one of us will pose as the armourer, he or he's the weapon. They'll be at a stage now where they will know this inside out, where they take the weapon, make sure it's clear. That's the safety aspect, holster and secure. We then load them up on the point. They load the weapon safely, make sure that's right. Then we roll the scene. They hit their marks whilst it's all being filmed for their show reel. And at the end, we say, okay, stop. Okay, now we're back into the safety stage. Okay, unload your weapon safely and prove it clear, as they do. And they say, okay, now hand it back to the armourer. So it replicates the whole process when they're actually on set.
And they've got to hit the marks. We have some marks on the grass on the range, little boxes. And say, if you don't hit that mark, 1, you're out of shot, 2, you're out of focus. So we'll have to do it, it's ruined. Doesn't matter whether you can shoot straight, look like you shoot straight, but if you're not in focus, you're not in focus. So that's where we marry both worlds, and they get that footage as well. So we try and make it as dynamic as possible. But yeah, at the end they get certificates as well, and
And they're part of the club, aren't they? Like they're literally part of that, yeah.
And Spotlight recognise our courses. So you can tick a box on Spotlight that says, yeah, I've done TV Cops bronze course or the silver course or the gold course. And casting directors can search for that skill. So if they want someone who's proficient in firearm safety and handling.
So an actor as a freelance could come to you and say, I'm not in a production at the moment, I want to do your bronze, silver.
That's the majority of people that we get. It's actors who, off their own back, want to build their CV, want them to try and get something unique, head and shoulders above other people. But one thing we do offer for agents is they can fill a course, we give a discount. So you could have a particular agency send us 6 students, and we will do a tailor course for those students.
I mean, we will put links below, but if someone wants to look on your website, they know how to get in touch with you, and then they can choose from there and
there's
or chat.
There's lots of contact details. If they go to tvcops.co.uk, they can look at the courses. There's a button on the front page where they can book online or learn more. Just basically learn more about us and our experience and what we are trying to do. And the two angles, the two aspects of TV Cops. One is the training and one's the advice.
One of my questions was going to be, what's the hardest thing you find to teach an actor? But I think you've explained all that. It's drumming in the safety and making it so they're not nervous and they can just follow.
The hardest thing?
I think the hardest thing, but it's not... The hardest thing is when, and I had this with a couple of students who, because I imagine there's so much pressure in the acting world, is that when they're not getting something right, or that it's not even not clicking, but let's say there's some physical restraints to them. So it's not uncommon for people who are of a lesser build, who struggle to hold the larger weapon. Well, they need a bit more assistance with that. That's happened on a course. I'm sure the student won't mind me mentioning it, is where were getting really frustrated because they saw that other people were doing it. And it's like, right, okay, that's... They find that hard, but then what we do, and what's been really good for our learning as well, is that we just say, okay, we have some one-to-one tuition, and we work with them and say, okay, right, are you struggling with that? Okay, let's work together. We can get through that. There's lots of different ways we can do it, and we actually got to a stage where it wasn't an issue. All we did was slightly tweak how they would initially hold the weapon and support it there, then put their hand into the relative position, and they were able to take it forward. So that's hard. I think they find that hard when they're not getting it, but it's absolutely not an issue for us. You know, we've had that a couple of times. We've had it with another student who, due to a historic injury, was not able to, when you pull the slide back on the pistol, was not able to reach this, and you would normally do it with this finger, we're not able to reach this catch, which made sure the top slide could come back and then you could see and check. They were really struggling. So we've never had it before, have we? No. Never had a colleague do it, but we tried different things, and essentially sorry, I was about to stick my middle finger up at you, but essentially they use that finger to do it, and we worked around it. So they may find that particularly hard, but we get them through it.
You don't just let them go high and dry.
Oh no, that's not what we do. And like I said, it's teaching both ways for us. Like I said, we're really big on adaptation, equality, diversity, inclusion. You know, we're really big on that. And something that we are really conscious about is that when you mention firearms, when you look at us, when you look at our background, it can be misperceived that we are macho and it's not a very inclusive environment, which, you know, there are criticisms for that and valid criticisms for the environments that I've been in previously. But no, what we were going to say is it's a friendly environment. It is for everyone. And everyone can do it, and that's what and we're really, really big on that. You know, representation.
Because there's armed female AFOs anyway, isn't there?
Of course there is, yeah.
And they don't have to be macho, do they?
Yeah, and we promote that, and directors love a female firearms officer. You'll see that scene on Wedding Season where they burst into the house. We changed it where I spoke to the director and said, I've got a 6-foot female officer here on this stick. I think I'd have put him at number 1. Yeah. Because it looks great. And the fact that door goes in and they come rushing in and there's a female voice shouting, "On, please. Contact, on, please, show me your hands." And they love it because it's just something a little bit different.
I would encourage anyone who's thinking about it, certainly for emails, to go on the website and have a look at Leah's testimonial. Who, she was very open to us, and she said, and this is what we expected to a degree. She was saying how nervous she was, but she only told us at the end, I was so nervous. I didn't think I'd be able to do it. I didn't think I'd be able to hold the weapon because it looks heavy, etc. I wasn't too sure. And by the end, she was a top performer, wasn't she? And she absolutely loved it.
Oh yeah, she absolutely smashed it. And to be fair, it's Leah who's got quite a few cop roles. I know she's got a role in the Raoul Moat. Because she asked asked me for some advice on the Raoul Moat documentary. Wow. She was on that, and don't forget, she played the assassin on Contained as well.
Yeah.
So she was quite handy with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Is it light-hearted or is it not stern and strict?
No, it's not stern. Don't get me. We say right at the beginning. We do safety briefs at the beginning, and we say, listen, when we say index, or we say stop. It's stop. There's certain points where we are in charge and you need to do what's being told. But what we find is actors are quite outgoing, aren't they? And they meet new people, because they're always meeting new people. We have a maximum of 6 people on our courses, for 2 instructors and a facilitator. We also had a videographer and a photographer as well, who's always there taking shots.
I must apply for that job.
Yeah, well, there you go. And the people come together very quickly, and there's a lot of camaraderie between those 6 people very, very quickly, and they're all very supportive of each other, aren't they? So they'll always have a bit of laugh and a bit of a joke.
They do, yeah. They bond quite quickly, and I suppose the funny things is where there's some verbal commands that we expect them to say. And so, for example, when we say make ready, which means just make sure there's a round in your weapon, you should shout ready. When your weapon doesn't fire for whatever reason, you shout stoppage. And we've had all sorts being shouted. There's one particular chap who's a character himself. He's great, to be honest, and he could not stop but shout outage.
We've had outage, we've had jammage.
Jammage, yeah.
We've had jammage as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
I can just imagine you on the range. We're jamming.
Well, to be fair, and if they get to the final assessment and they're doing everything right and they're doing the magazine changes right, because the producer, the director might not want them to say anything, but we teach them proper range drills. If on their assessment they say jammage instead of stoppage, you know what I mean? We have a laugh about it, don't we?
Yeah.
And stuff. But there's certainly none of this because they're under enough pressure. Yeah. Well, that's us two coming faces like wet weekend and pointing fingers at them.
And if there is, and it happens if there is a slight safety breach, for example, the weapon, they turn, which is all too common. They turn like that. It's like it's okay. We step in. There's no shout. It's like, okay, right. Listen, you've done this now. Let's move this forward. And let's say and it's not often, but let's say they do it again. It's like, right, okay, that indicates to us that we need to just provide a bit more tuition there. And we say, right, okay, and we'll do for that example, I would usually say, right, okay, we're going to focus on that. So what we'll do, and I'll walk around them and say, okay, look at me now, and they're like, and they'll start keeping the weapon there, and we just tailor it. So we jump on them. And that's not the right phrase. If we see a breach of safety, we are on it, but we're supportive and we're very cognizant that this is the first time they've ever picked up a firearm.
It's a big safety point, and it's called flagging, where if your weapon's pointed at someone else in any way, whether it be a handgun or your carbine, and some of the drills on the second day where they're having to turn but keep the carbine from down at the floor, really does get them working quite hard and get them thinking. Mm-hmm. Because flagging, whether your weapon's clear or not, doesn't matter. You shouldn't be pointing a weapon at anybody at any time.
I can imagine that in a production where the actors are moving around people, and if someone does it properly, points down when they're going behind someone or in front.
Yes,
exactly. You can imagine he's learned.
You notice it, and the way you would see somebody who's been trained by anybody, even if they've got army background or whatever, is whether they're flagging anyone or not, and because as soon as someone comes near, they'll drop the weapon.
Excellent. So let's just move away slightly from TV cops. Can you tell us more about Noah?
No. Yeah. Like I say, when I got onto Spotlight, and those on Spotlight will understand this, a lot of people equate this to the old equity rules as well. Oh, have you got an equity card? People still ask that question. and that you can't work in the industry unless you got an equity card. I think that equity are still there. Equity are still a good business and will fight for the rights of actors, but you don't need to have an equity card to be able to act. But on Spotlight, you can't have two people with the same name. And when I got accepted onto Spotlight, I was like, great, yeah, punch in the name that you want to use. Steve Bradshaw, name already taken. I'm like, okay then. Stephen Bradshaw, name already taken. Okay, Steve Bradshaw. Let's go with that. Name already taken. Whatever variation I made of my name, taken. So I was like, what am I going to do? It seems a bit odd, and it's felt a bit strange. Where I was like, I've done all this work to get onto Spotlight, and I can't use my own name. But I've always been interested in the history of my collar number in the police. Now, as you know, every police officer gets a collar number from the start of your service, and you keep it till the end. So my collar number was 677, and researching that collar number, it's been held by quite a few people over the years. The most standout person was a chap who was a police officer in the 1910s, who, when war broke out, when the Great War broke out, went to the First World War and fought for his country in the King's Shropshire Regiment, because he was originally from down south. But because all the police officers got enlisted in the army, and unfortunately he got killed in the first few months of action, and his name was Noah Bird. And I did a bit of research on Noah and where he came from, and his body was never found, and he's recognised on the Plug Street Memorial in Belgium, just across the border. And I did some research, and I got a photograph of him and stuff, and I'm punching Steve Bradshaw into Spotlight, and I'm thinking, what can I use? What can I? And I want something. If I'm going to not use my own name, I want something that's going to be memorable. And
Schwarzenegger's taken.
Yeah, Stallone's taken, because that's the first thing you think of when you look at me, isn't it? And it seemed a natural fit that it would be Noah, and it would, that link between him. And I always thought to myself, this is a great story for Graham Norton, isn't it? For me to kind of come up. So it's Noah Bird, B-U-R-D. And as Cliff Richard once said, he changed his name. And someone said, oh, is it Cliff Richards? He went, no, it's Cliff Richard, because then I can say it again when I correct you. So it's B-U-R-D for Noah Bird. So that's where the Noah Bird came from. So I can go on a set and I can be called Noah, depending on who's kind of put me forward for it, because get it through Spotlight, it's all Noah Bird, and then I'm signing contracts as Steve Bradshaw. I wish I didn't have a different name, because it causes some issues sometimes with paperwork and insurance. And my COVID, I had to do a COVID exam where you got a certificate, and the certificate came out, Steve Bradshaw, and it was like, oh, you're Noah Bird. Yeah, but it's me. Well, we need a certificate. No, you don't.
Do you not just say, it's my trading name?
It's my name, and don't get me wrong, but I find that it's a little bit of a nod to Noah.
Who are you going to be called, Mark?
My name's complicated enough, to be honest. It's Mark Mottashed. So, but I think I won't step into the acting sphere just yet.
So, Man in Toilets is not on IMDb then?
No, it's not. What's that? Oh yeah.
Do we have a clip of that? Can we?
Yes, I've got a clip of that.
Excellent.
I've got a clip of that. That'll be on your email.
So we've established you've got an agent?
Yes. My agent is Mark Potts at Mint Casting. Now, Mint are predominantly a sporting artist agency. And what people normally do is they kind of get to a point where they're on Spotlight or nearly on Spotlight, and they kind of leave agencies like Mark's and kind of go and get themselves, quote, a proper acting agent. But I found that the amount of... I got my Wolf cast role through Mark, has a lot of contacts in the industry. And if people are coming, casting people or people who look after the extra side of it, also look after the people who come on and say a few words, like the walk-on threes and the featured people. Look after those, and that's where I kind of like being. But people talking on set and people know you, and you make contacts from different ways. And I've got, like I said, I got the casserole on Wolf through Mark. And so, yeah, I'm happy where I am.
Is that did you allude there to how you network? Is it all about who you know and contacts and being friendly and approachable and as an actor?
I don't think it's all about who you know. I think you've got to be able to do the thing on screen, because you found out very quickly if you can't. I think Ford Coppola found that out with Godfather 3 when he put his daughter in one of the main roles and she bombed, I think. But it doesn't help if, it doesn't go against you if you are the person who is on set and speaking to people and friendly and stuff, because there is a lot of waiting around, there's a lot of standing around, and one scene which is 45 seconds on screen can take an whole afternoon, because we have we're turning around now, and which means they're changing the camera angles, and that's another 15, 20 minutes of hanging about. So just speaking to people and getting to know people, and then getting to know you and what you can do. And it's simple things. And we're used to this from the cops. If a first AD said, right, Steve, what I want you to do, I want you to come in through that door, come over here, hit that mark, give that person a piece of paper, wave at that person, and walk off that way. Right, okay. I like to think I'd do it in a couple of takes, because you can kind of receive instructions and enact instructions. So I think they just want, especially in soaps, they want someone, and Rhys Dinsdale's spoken about this, who's directed some Emmerdale episodes, is from a day player, which is where I see myself, really. They want you to turn up, say your lines, hit your marks, and go away.
Politely.
Yeah, but he says it in a really nice way, because the churn is so quick. And I think that if you're in a position where, because I've been on Emmerdale a couple of times, been on Coronation Street a couple of times, and there's nothing lost in the fact of, we just want somebody who's going to come and do it. We don't want a squeaky wheel. Who's going to trap up and do it? Get Steve to do it, or Mark to do it, or get Bob to do it, or somebody else. And I'm sure there's the list somewhere, a green list and a red list and a black list and all that kind of stuff in many ways. And
so do you like doing self-tapes?
Self-tapes. It's even got to the point where I have, because my partner's an actor as well, one of us has got a self-tape to do. And we've got a portion of the basement against the light blue wall, a couple of lights, a camera, and we just go down and do it.
This is a professional set, all this.
Well, as much as you can do. You move the bed settee out of the way and set it up, and they just want to see you, don't they? They just want to see. It's not about the perfect, but we try and light it properly. We try and film it correctly and do a bit of editing on Power Director afterwards to try and make it the best it can be.
So I'm a headshot photographer.
Right.
Do you like having your headshots done?
I do. I actually got a headshot session as a leaving present from the police. I'm sure Mark had something to do with that.
Just want to say that was all Charlotte, by the way. Nothing to do with me.
Charlotte?
Yeah.
Who's Charlotte?
Let's move on.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Chantal.
That's who I meant.
So yeah, the thing with self-tapes is, and you're the expert, you tell me, but it's an opportunity to show...
self-tapes and headshots.
Sorry, self-tapes and headshots, yeah. Is you need to show the different roles you can do. I don't see the point, personally, about just having the same shot but with a different jacket on.
Do you have a role that you're looking forward to playing?
My dream role, would you say? On TV?
Anywhere? Stage, TV, adverts?
RSC, Royal Shakespeare Company. I've had this conversation with my other half where she said, would you rather have 6-month contract on Corrie or would you have like a 4-month run at the RSC? And I said, it's a daft question. I'd rather go to the RSC. As anything, I'd love to play Montjoy. I'd love to play any Henry V character, except for King Richard.
Well, that's quite passionate, isn't it? Because the wage packet on Coronation Street would be a lot more, wouldn't it? But you really want to play Montjoy?
Well, yeah, well, that's where it all started, and that was the kick up the backside that I gave myself. You know, when you sit down and have a word with yourself and say, listen, you're either going to do it or you aren't. Who's going to do it for you? Get it done. And you give yourself a kick up the bum. And I never went to the audition thinking, yeah, I'm going to get the lead. You know what I mean? Against all these really good actors. But yeah, anything. Well, any Shakespeare, really. But yeah, it'd be the RSC for me. Montjoy especially. But because it's a small part, but it'd be a lot of personal significance in that.
Come on, Mark, who would you like to play?
Oh, gosh.
What leading role?
Oh, God.
I'll put you on the spot now.
I have, yeah.
Jason Bourne's dad.
Do you know... Poor man's Jason Statham. Yeah, I don't know. I generally, yeah.
Must be an action role, no? Or are you more of a
No, yeah. I mean, I'm a bit of a film buff, to be honest. But okay,
a romantic role?
No, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
you
No,
can see him as the leading man, can't you?
right, quickly, come on. What film do I enjoy? Good Will Hunting. I like that. So perhaps Robin Williams' role in that. I found that quite an impactful role, and that was quite ad lib as well.
Poetry, that one, wasn't it?
No, that was the Dead Poets Society. Good Will Hunting was Ben
Obviously,
Affleck.
I've not seen this.
Oh yeah, no, Ben Affleck
you've not seen
and
it?
Matt Damon. So one of the first films he wrote, incredible film. Won quite a lot of awards, and they brought Robin Williams in, and it was just a good marry of their innovative spirit and script writing and eagerness to do so with his experience. And it's just he plays a character who helps a troubled young man through his troubles, and starts off as a combative relationship, but grows into a real strong mentor-mentee friendship in the end. So, yeah, I'd recommend it.
That's your favourite one. What's your least favourite when it comes to either the portrayal of TV cops or...
I think when it comes from a cop perspective, particularly the things that we do, I wouldn't say it's a terrible film, but a certain scene sticks out to me is in Bad Boys 2, when they go to attack some cartel and they've just got unbelievable amount of kit. It's just great. It's like you would never get anywhere near that, like in the real world as a cop. Certainly not as a UK cop. You know, they're coming out the water, you know, with full camouflage across. And
again, I've never seen one.
all right, the best you'll get for that in the UK is probably stood on the hard shoulder, not on
In the
TC
rain.
when it's when it's
Well, the
thrashing
cop
down.
car, the UK cop car turns up at the scene, they throw the boot open, and there's like a traffic cone, half a roll of something, an out-of-date intoxilizer.
And an evidence bag that's been there, that's got more service than the cop.
Yeah, a ripped evidence bag. That's about right. But for me, I don't know. I don't think I've ever thought what's my worst.
It doesn't have to be.
What have you been
cops. Oh, that was cutting. Oh.
No, I can't think.
What advice would you give to someone that wants to go into the entertainment industry then? Because there's someone that might have had a long career like yourself and they've been umming and ahhing.
Well, let's start there then, because I was an and an ahhrer. And you can have as many motivational posters on your wall with pictures of some snowy mountain peaks as you want. But unless you're going to do it, nothing's going to happen. The one person who's going to do it is you. And yes, there's going to be a fear of rejection. When I went to that Henry V audition, I went down to London, I was on the train and I'm thinking, what am I doing? What am I actually doing? And I'd turn up in a room and it'd be like, a lot of actors in there, and I'd be like, I don't got a clue.
If Kenneth Branagh's there, I'm going.
Yeah. If Kenneth Branagh's there going up against me, all right, Kenny lad. The thing I would say is, if you're going to do it, do it. You might get knocked back, and the acting industry is a killer for getting kicked. If I can say, getting kicked in the nuts again and again and again.
I do have a bleep machine.
Right, getting kicked in the nuts. It's not going to go your way. You're not going to get the audition that you wanted. There'd be something you think, oh, I love that. I'd love to be on that program. I'd love to do this. Oh God, yeah. And you'd invest yourself into it, and you won't get it. You won't get that. It is brutal, and you need a lot of resilience. But again, there's a lot of things where you need that. Script writers, they need a lot of resilience because they get knocked back left, right, and centre. Actors do. You're not going to get everything you go for. In fact, you might not get anything that you go for. But you need to keep picking yourself up and keep moving forward. But none of that's going to happen unless you stop umming and ahhing and move on and say, I'm going to do it. And what I did is make a list. There's a saying in the police, keeping your eye on the squirrel. It's a detective term. 100 things can be happening, but right, what's the most important thing that we need to deal with right now? Keeping your eye on the squirrel. So keep your eye on the squirrel about what you need to do to progress. And the way I found it was, right, how do I get a show reel? I do some student films, get a show reel. Right, how do I get on Spotlight? Well, I have to get 4 credits of walk on 3 or 12 words or more or whatever it was. Right, well, I need my show reel to do that, so I'll do that, and I'll try and get these bit parts and get onto Spotlight. Right, we get on Spotlight, what can I do now? You could get yourself a better agent, or get yourself an agent, or you could apply for better roles that are only being released on Spotlight. So finding and fine-tune your channel through the business, I would say, and play to your strengths. You know, I can play a cop because I was a cop for 27 years. I can probably play some other roles like that, like prison officer and things like that. It might be a little bit more easier for me to do it. So if you have some strengths, play to them. And
Could you play a bad guy?
yeah, well, on the short film Contained, I play organised crime group leader, don't I? And some people was commenting on how dark that got.
Yeah, I was taken aback, to be honest, yeah.
But there's other times where we did this welfare video for the police, and Mark was a sergeant, I was his inspector at the time, and part of it was I was in counselling. So part of the scene was I just had to start crying. And I can start crying when I want, and you were behind the camera, weren't you?
And this was my first step into the acting world, so there's a rule since that day. And the rule is Steve is not allowed to cry in front of me. Because it's like watching your granddad cry. It's strange. Because he always has been my line manager in the police.
This guy you've got a working relationship with.
Yeah.
Suddenly...
Which again, I know isn't good for inclusion, but I just wasn't expecting it. I was like, perhaps a bit more of a heads up, Steve. If you're going to start crying in front of me, because I was like, what? I don't know what to do here.
Would you have given him an Oscar for
that? No, never give Steve anything. No, even if he did deserve it.
So yeah, the thing is, go for it. Don't make it your everything. If you want to be an actor, or even you want to be a props manager, or you want to be a costume supervisor, or whatever. If you want to be in the business, just find your niche in the business and find out your route into it. Because my route might not be the same as Mark's, yours, somebody else's. And just keep going. And don't make it your everything. And if you have to, and if you have to pay the mortgage by acting, it won't last long. Get yourself a job, or keep on in your job, and then be in the very lucky position where the acting might start impinging on your work, your day work. Pay the mortgage, pay the gas bill, and then concentrate on your acting.
Can I add to that, just from a sort of comparison? So having changed careers recently, and you were mentioning about the human and ahhing and the procrastination. So my recent experience of that, and something I still discuss with still serving officers and still serving force members, is there's always going to be, well, people look at it, right, wrong decision. What's the right thing to do here? Well, actually, get rid of that. Actually, it's just a decision. Whatever you decide to do is a decision. And there's always going to be positives and negatives with that. Don't get hung up on the right or wrong. If you decide to jump into the acting career or whatever career linked to it, then, yeah, there will be good things and there'll be some bad things. Take that as learning. And the interesting thing about resilience as well, because I've heard that a couple of times, is that you need huge resilience for acting, from my brief understanding of it. But there's always silver linings to that, I think. You can go in with beating yourself up, and I suppose it's really hard to do this, but whenever I've had knockbacks in my career or life, it's okay, what's the silver lining here? Okay, the resilience is actually making me a little bit stronger. I'm going to try and take some learning from that. So, yeah, that'd be my 2 penneth worth.
And accept those silver linings, and the silver linings will come. And there'll be days where it's the worst thing you could have ever done. You will hate it. And there's other days where it's the best thing ever. And the fact of you getting to work and do your job with household names. And it is a pinch me moment. I've had a couple of pinch me moments, especially when I worked with the actor who played Montjoy in the Branagh 1989 version of Henry V. And it was like, I just met him at the brew stall thing. And it was like, and I've never done it to any actor, however famous they may be, on set, because that's the working place. But he was the only person I've ever gone to and said, you know what, you inspired me to get into acting. And if I never get an audition ever again, the whole thing of my acting experience, if it crashes and burns tomorrow, has been 100 times worth it just for that encounter.
So that's the advice you would give to people. What advice have you received in life?
You mean from actors or just generally in life?
In generally. Something that you've then applied. Any sort of interesting nuggets?
I'm the youngest of 4 boys.
So you always had to fight?
Yeah. I do remember literally that when my mum and dad used to go out on a Friday night, they'd go out about 9:30 at night, and we lived opposite, in Gloucester Call, lived opposite a working men's club. Because they're working class, mum and dad. And they'd go out on a Friday and Saturday night to this club for an hour and a bit and come back with some chips and all the rest of it. And the 4 of us were together, but my oldest brother was old enough to, quote, look after us all. And we'd do all sorts of stupid things. And one of them was where we'd like put boxing gloves on and literally have a go. So the thing I learnt was early doors is if you want to go and get it, and the only person that's going to get you to the next rise of that hill is you. Don't get me wrong, you're going to have good people around you who are going to support you and do all the rest of it, but the person who gets you out of bed in the morning is you. And I think that kind of drive, and that drive comes from my mother, I would say, more than my father, about pick yourself up by your bootstraps and crack on and march on. So yeah, that's the big thing for me, and I don't think that's done me any harm, and it probably got me to where it did in the police. And it's like, right, I've done this now, what's next? Just sit still for a bit, Steve, and like just chill. No, what's next? What are we doing next? And I think if you set yourself challenges as you go through life, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it kind of links into what I would say along that is that personal development. You know, there's so many different avenues out there now, reading, courses, YouTube, you know, it's a great source of learning. So don't be limited by, certainly not what other people think, or even, and don't be limited by the challenge. Yeah, I think life's always going to throw challenges at you. And if you start something new, start something fresh, it's going to be difficult, but just start somewhere and lean on the plethora of information out there. And, you know, even if you put a short time frame together, like half an hour every day, do that for 2 or 3 months, you'll surprise yourself at actually your knowledge increase and how good you are or better you are at a particular thing.
Okay, Steve, you've actually been in a recent production with 2 actors that I recently spoke to, Mark and Kelly.
Yes, and again, comes back to what I was talking about networking and getting the message out there and what TV Cops can do for you is I worked with a very good makeup artist on a couple of productions over the last 18 months called Zara Abram. And I got a phone call one day from Zara to say, Steve, we're on the set of this film called Transfusion, and the guy who's meant to be playing the police officer hasn't turned up or isn't turning up or whatever. We're here now. We've got the hospital, because it's a hospital ward scene. So we're here. We've got it all set up, and our actor's not turned up. Can you help out? And they were in Bolton, and I lived just outside Chorley. So, and it was only because she knew what I did, and she knew about TV Cops and all the rest of it. I was able to be on set within 40 minutes. So yeah, and got these lines which I had to kind of try and digest very quickly, and I gave them some police advice on the lines, which they were very, very good about making some slight tweaks to what they were trying to do. So yeah, it was all of a sudden something very, very quick, and a contact call, and that's where I met Mark and Kelly, and have been part of the production ever since. And it's I'm looking forward to seeing it. It looks like a great little short film, and it's a fantastic idea as well. If no one's seen the trailer, about a mild and meek guy who won't say boo to a goose, gets a blood transfusion from he's a serial killer, I think, and then suddenly changes, and the ramifications from that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's me too. It should be good, that one. So just before we wrap up, I always ask this: who would you like to see or hear next on another podcast?
What about a writer? I've always found speaking to writers very, very entertaining. One, because they're quite eloquent and they're articulate, because they're writers, and they've all got some great stories, some life stories. So I don't know, somebody like Tony Schumacher, who did Responder, or I can't remember the name of the lady now who did Happy Valley, or Dara Carville, who did The Bay. I've heard Dara talk. I've been to London to hear him talk. He's a very, very engaging guy, and a very open and very and he's a good interviewee. But yeah, I would say a writer. Find a program that you like would be my thing, and find out who wrote it, because sometimes the writers are just the name at the bottom of the credits, and I don't think they get the acknowledgement that they deserve sometimes.
Okay, Steve, Mark, that was great. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. I'm going to fill everything out onto the website with links for the viewers, so they can get access to it and find out if they can chat to you if they want to go know about your courses. So thank you for coming, Steve and Mark. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Entertainment Video Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my channel, and let me know who you would like to see on a future Entertainment Video Podcast.